प्राप्तस्य कल्याणगुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्य गीता वादित्रमाद्यान्मनसुरसेना रोमाञ्चकम्पाश्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यनाना शृङ्गारतन्मन्तिरमजनाद युक्तस्य भक्तांश्च निरञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो स्वादन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घान् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना प्रतिक्षणस्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् निकुञ्जयो रतिकेलिसेदय यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रादिदाक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् साक्षादरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भायत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत् प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि दायं स्तुवं तस्य यस्य स्त्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रष्टाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Ma Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha. Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Namaste Narasimhaya. प्रलादलाददायिने हिरण्यकाशी पूर्ववक्षा शीलतङ्कानकालाये इतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बाहिर्नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरेणाकाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गां केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे के कमलवरेणा सीता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवदीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय बलात् महाराज जय भक्ता प्रहलाद जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल
Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Ye Abhilashi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Ye Abhilashi जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वांछा पूर्ण हो कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास नायाने हेरी बो सदा जुगल रूपराशि निवेदन धरो सखीरानुगत करो सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीन कृष्ण दासी को ये नमो रहो श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमी सदये नभासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमी सदये नभासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पादे पदे यानि कानि च यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nittai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. मति वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय. वृंदाये तुलसी देवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः. वृंदाये तुलसी देवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः. वृंदाये तुलसी देवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः. श्रीमती वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय.
Desire is to obtain the service of
My desire will also grant me a residence in the precious groves of Shiva and down the town. Thus within my vision I shall behold the beautiful pastime of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follower of the Karho dance of the Vraja. Please give me the privileged devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their life for the propagation of the name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Veda literature pursuant to Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, offered in the Vedas are fruitive activities, karma, kanda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about the glory of the holy name. 10. To not complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success, Krishna prema. Now let us offer most humble obeisances on all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as I trees who can fulfill to everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned soul. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Pavamahadavagni Nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Putivardhanam Pratipadam Purnarmita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakali Bahudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadvishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durudevami Disham Yaha Janina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunichena Tarordapi Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadaharihi Nathanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Jamani Jamanishvare Bhavata Bhaktir Haituki Tvai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Pavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pad Pankaja Stithaturi Satesham Vichintaya Nayanam Kaladashru Daraya Vatanam Katkata Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapurkada Tava Nama Grahane Bhavishati Yuga itam nimishena chakshusha prarisha itam shunya itam jagat sarvam govinda virahe name ashirishava padratam pinnashtumam adarshanam marmhadam karotuva yatha tatha va vidathatu lampato matprananathastu seeva naparaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which inclines the heart of all that does accumulate for years.
And extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth. This Sankirtana movement is a prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do you desire beautiful women, nor do you want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. At some or other I fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when you chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so when he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worship Lord unconditionally. Sri Chaitanya Sistastakam. Sri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschasya Desatarini Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namini Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Dayataya Krupabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayine Prabhave Namaha Madhurojvala Premadhya Sri Rupanuga Bhaktida Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Sri Murtaye Dinatarini Rupanuga Virupa Siddhanta Dvantaharini Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambode Padam Bhujayate Namaha Namo Bhakta Vinodaya Satchidananda Namini Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaurabhirbhava Bhumestvam Nirdesha Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarva Bhuma Shri Jagannadayate Namaha Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhaite Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaure Tushe Namaha Panchatatvakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhaktasektikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratau Pangor Mama Mandamaterkati Matsarvasvapadam Bojau Radha Madana Mohanam Divya Dvindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanastav Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Kristal Vihi Sevimana Swarami Sriman Rasa Saram Divam Sivatastita Karshan Veswaner Gopir Gopinata Sri Estuna Tapta Kanchan Gorandi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Shri Brahmasmita ki jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Nugraha Nadi Radhi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadmasakalpa Vriksha Laksha Vete Surabhira Vipalyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamana Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Gwanantam Aravinda Dalayataksam Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sopam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvaram Alyavamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranaya Kela Kalavilasam Shamanchi Bangalalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendra Vittimanti Pasyanti Banti Kalyanti Chiram Jagati Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayora Tapi Manasomari Pungamana Sopyasti Prapada Simya Vichintitatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Surachayitam Jagadanda Kruti Yes Jagdirasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Adantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayan Busa Suktayameva nigama pratitashtavanti govindamadi purisham tamaham bhajam yad bhava bhavita devmanajas. Ananda chinmaya rasa patibhavita abhista birya eva nijarupa daya kalabi goloka eva nivasata kilatma bhuto govindamadi purisham tamaham bhajami pramanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santaksa deva hidesa vilokayanteyam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupa Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Multi Sukalani Minitistan Naravatara Makarud Bhuvanesha Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumamyo Govindamadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. And he is the prime cause of all causes. Go ahead.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with a head decked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyamasundara is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning, and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis, who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe, at one and at the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, who in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure. Resembling his own spiritual figure. The embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, Sakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shyamasundara, Krishna himself with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion tinged with salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the form of Rama, Nrisimha, Vamana, etc. as his subjective portions.
Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai, Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Satari. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakti Vindam. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. We're going to repeat a little bit of the 15th chapter, text number 7, starting from the second paragraph. So, who wants to read? Anybody? Okay, go ahead. The living entity is not only human beings.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
The living entities, not only human beings and the cats and dogs, but even the greater controllers of the material world, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and even Vishnu, are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They are all eternal, not temporary manifestations. The word karsati, struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up as though shackled by iron chains. He is bound up by the false ego, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in this material existence.
Okay, 1 second. If you look up the 6th chapter, 5th verse, Bhagavad Gita 6.5, and it says, 6.5, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. And in the purport it says, the word Atma denotes body, mind, and soul, depending upon different circumstances. In the yoga system, the mind and the conditioned soul are especially important, since the mind is the central point of yoga practice. Atma refers here to the mind. The purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind and to draw it away from attachment to sense objects. It is stressed herein that the mind must be so trained that it can deliver the conditioned soul from the mire. Mire means like the dirt or the entanglement of nescience, meaning ignorance. In material existence, one is subjected to the influence of the mind and the senses. In fact, the pure soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with the false ego, which desires to lord it over material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature, and in this way the conditioned soul may be saved. Okay, one should not degrade himself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted to sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. That's a law of nature right there. The best way to disentangle oneself is to always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. The word he is used for emphasizing this point. That is, that one must do this. It is also said, for man, mind is the cause of bondage, and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from the sense objects is the cause of liberation. Therefore, the mind, which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, is the cause of supreme liberation. This is a very important purport, and this supports what we just read, that the conditioned soul is bound up as though shackled by iron chains. He is bound by the false ego, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in the material existence. When the mind is in the modes of goodness, his activities are good. When the mind is in the mode of passion, his activities are troublesome. And when the mind is in the mode of ignorance, he travels in the lower species of life. This is extremely important, especially for our children to understand, and for us to understand, first of all, and then teach it to our children. Okay.
It is clear, however, in this verse that the conditioned soul is covered by the material body, with the mind and the senses. And when he is liberated, this material covering perishes. But his spiritual body manifests itself in its individual capacity. The following information is there in the Mahatyadinaya Shruti. Sava esa brahmanishta idham sariram mrityam athistya brahmadi sampadya brahmana pasyanti brahmana srinoti brahmanai vedam sarvam anubhavati. It is stated here that when a living entity gives up this material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body. And in his spiritual body, he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He can hear and speak to him face to face, and he can understand the Supreme Personality as he is.
So, do we believe this? He's talking about how to see God face to face. So, and it all depends upon giving up the material. When the living entity gives up the material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body. Who believes that they have a spiritual body? Most people don't believe it. They think, oh no, I'm just this body. This is what we're up against. This is why material education is so dangerous, because it assumes things that are not true and teaches these things that are not true as if they're true. So what do you expect to happen when you're, let's say you're a student and you're being bombarded with these types of false concepts? Eventually you just go along with it. Go ahead.
From Smriti, also it is understood Vasanti Yatra Purusha Sarve Vaikunta Murtaya. In the spiritual planets, everyone lives in bodies featured like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as bodily construction is concerned,
So that means everybody in the spiritual world has bodies that are somewhat similar to Krishna's.
there is no difference between the
or Vishnu, either one, depending where you are. If you're in Goloka, it's Krishna. If you're in Vaikuntha, it's Narayana. Go ahead.
there is no difference between the part and parcel living entities and the expansions of Vishnu Murti. In other words, at liberation, the living entity gets a spiritual body by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words Mamai Vamsha, fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also very significant. The fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is not like some material broken part. We have already understood in the second chapter that the spirit cannot be cut into pieces. This fragment is not materially conceived. It is not like matter which can be cut into pieces and joined together again. That conception is not applicable here because the Sanskrit word Sanatana, eternal, is used. The fragmental portion is eternal. It is also stated in the beginning of the second chapter that in each and every individual body, the fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is present. Dehinosmin yatha dehe. That fragmental portion, when liberated from the bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body in the spiritual sky, in a spiritual planet, and enjoys association with the Supreme Lord. It is, however, understood here that the living entity, being the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one with the Lord, just as the parts and parcels of the gold are also gold.
So you see, we have direct knowledge of the spiritual world right in the Bhagavad Gita. And it's very, very high quality knowledge. Where else can you get that knowledge? I mean, it's not there in Christianity. There's some things, but not clear like this. It's not there in Islam. It's not there in Judaism. So it's only in Krishna consciousness that you get such direct and exact knowledge of what's going on in the spiritual world. Why? Because it's Krishna talking about himself. Who could be a better authority than Krishna himself? Okay, we'll go on some more. Now we go to text 8. I wanted to go over that one more time because it's very important.
Text 8, Maharaj.
Yes.
Translation. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Purport. Here, the living entity is described as Ishvara, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him on to the next type of body. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or dog, he is sure to change to a cat's or dog's body. And if he has fixed his consciousness on godly qualities, he will change into the form of a demigod. And if he is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world and will associate with Krishna. It is a false claim that after the annihilation of this body, everything is finished.
So that's what they're teaching in schools. When you die, it's all over. Even Christianity, in a sense, teaches that you only have one life. That's it. Either you go back to Godhead or go back to Jesus, or either you die completely or you suffer forever in hell. What kind of philosophy is that? It's like mean. It's not merciful. You see, there's one lady the other day in a home program. She said, "Well, you know, Christianity is and Jesus is more merciful than Krishna consciousness or Hinduism." She said Hinduism, because Hindus say, you have to suffer because of your previous karma. You have to suffer in this life. But Christians say if you accept Jesus, then you're saved and you get the mercy of the Lord. So then I answered, I said, well, actually, Christianity is mean and merciless, and Krishna consciousness is merciful. Because, one, Christianity does not say that the living entity was living before it entered the body. So, in other words, you only have one life. And in that one life, let's say you're born in China or Mongolia, and you never have any connection with Christianity, that means you go to hell, right, according to them. Or you die forever. And because there's no reincarnation, you just have that one life. So that's mean. Whereas Krishna consciousness, you're eternal, but you can stay in the material world eternally if you stay attached to sense gratification. Or if you accept Krishna consciousness, you can be purified and go back to Godhead. So, therefore, God is not limiting you to just one birth. And there's no explanation of why one person is born blind and another person is born with eyes, or one person is born crippled and another person is born with a perfect body. That means that God must be mean, because you only have one life, and if you're born with congenital disease, then how can you function like somebody else who's born with a complete body and no problems? So, therefore, some people come to the conclusion God is mean, because why did he give me this type of body when you only have one life? And how can I become, liberated if I'm paralyzed like this? So, you see, Krishna consciousness is much more realistic. Krishna uh, gives you the choice. You are Ishwara of your body. If you decide to use your body in Krishna's service, you're liberated. If you refuse to do that, you stay in a cycle of birth and death, but you keep getting chances to be liberated. Whereas the Christians, they say, oh, it's just one life. And either you make it or you don't make it. So which one is actually merciful? It's actually Krishna consciousness. It's not Christianity. Christianity, in a sense, is mean. Now, that Jesus is forgiving, Jesus loves you, all right, all that is good. We're not against that. But the idea that you only have one life, there's no reincarnation, all these are false ideas. And we have shown how they developed those false ideas, starting with Aristotle and going to Origen, and then going to um, Origen to what's his name? Anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. And then eventually to Aquinas, Thomas Aquinas. And by that time, they got all this phony theories about the living entity in the material world. Okay, so go ahead.
The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body, which carries the conception of the next body, develops another body in the next life. This process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in the body is called karsati, or struggle for existence.
This is going on in everybody's life, this karsati, this struggle for existence. And everyone's losing the struggle as long as they're not Krishna conscious, because they die and they have to take birth again. But every time you take birth again, especially if you get another human body, you have a chance to be liberated. Now, let's say you don't get a human body. Well, you will come back eventually to the human body. It could take a long time, but you do come back again to the human body, and then you have another chance to liberate yourself if you listen to genuine knowledge as given in Bhagavad Gita. Okay, are there any questions about that? So this verse, text 8, Sarinam yad avapnoti yachchapi utkramisht paraha grihit vaitani samyati vayur gandham ivasayat. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So we have a chance in the human body to purify ourselves by coming in contact with Krishna consciousness, so that we don't stay trapped in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. We have that chance. Everybody has it. No one is excluded as long as you have a human body. Even if you're ignorant, still you can attain perfection through Krishna consciousness. Okay, let's go to the next verse, number 9.
Translation. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and senses of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Purport. In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally pure, like water. But if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure. But consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities.
Okay, so that's the main thing you have to remember. What are those material qualities? Goodness, passion, and ignorance. So as long as we're associating with people who, or even animals, like some people have dogs, so they have to feed the dog, they have to clean the dog, they have to, sometimes they sleep with the dog in the same bed, and they let the dog eat at their table when they're eating, and all kinds of things like that. So the dog, they developed a lot of attachment to the dog. So at the moment of death, if you think about the dog, what happens? You get the body of a dog. So everything depends on our association. Do we hate dogs? No, we don't hate dogs. Do we hate cats? No, we don't hate cats. But should we keep them in the house? That's a big question. You know? Now, before in India, no one ever kept a dog in a house. Now, people keep dogs in their house. Is it not? I was shocked many years ago. I was walking somewhere in Delhi, and it was a high end neighborhood, and I saw this man from one of these big houses in this neighborhood. He's walking his dog. Now his dog looked exactly like the dogs outside, the wild dogs, but he was like nice and healthy. The other dogs are not so healthy. And I was thinking, like, that guy owns a dog, and he's keeping it in his house, just like an American. Are there people like that in India? Yeah. You see what happened to the culture? They keep the cat in. Okay. American dogs. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So you see how things change very easily. Now, look what it's saying here. Let's read that again.
In other words, if the living entity adulterates his consciousness with the qualities of cats and dogs, in his next life he gets a cat or dog body and enjoys. Consciousness is originally
Actually, he suffers, but it's saying he enjoys, but he actually suffers. Go ahead.
consciousness is originally pure like water, but if we mix water with a certain color, it changes. Similarly, consciousness is pure, for the spirit soul is pure, but consciousness is changed according to the association of the material qualities. Real consciousness is Krishna consciousness. When therefore one is situated in Krishna consciousness, he is in his pure life. But if his consciousness is adulterated by some type of material mentality, in the next life he gets a
Okay, you
corresponding
notice
body.
that some type of material mentality. Well, that means there's millions of types of material mentalities in the form of speculation in this world. And every day, people are speculating, coming up with theories, new theories, and it's unending. And we have to have some, what you would call, protection. That protection is hearing transcendental knowledge on a regular basis. Then we won't be attracted to all those theories. If we don't have this, then we're very easily influenced by those false theories, and we'll ruin our life like that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
He does not necessarily get a human body again. He can get the body of a cat, dog, hog, demigod, or one of many other forms, for there are 8,400,000 species.
There you are. Next life, you can end up with 4 legs and a tail. If we're not careful. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, cows are right near that. Yes. Yes. We go through all the species. To come to the human form, you already went through all the species, 8 million of them, to come to the human form. Are what? So everybody suffers. Human beings suffer too. Everybody has some problems. That's the nature of the material world. Right? So therefore, we should put an end to it by becoming Krishna conscious. We have the chance. No one is denying anyone the opportunity to become Krishna conscious. Even the most unintelligent person in the world can become Krishna conscious. Let's take a look at that. That's very important. It says here, Mamhi Parthavya Pasritya Tipisyu Papayunha Shivaisas Tatas Jas Tipiyanti Param Gatim. That is 14th chapter. Let's take a look at that. 14th chapter. Maybe it's not there. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Ninth chapter, 32nd verse. I'm sorry. Ninth chapter, 32nd verse. And it says, Mamhi Parthavya Pasritya. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, meaning fallen women, not all women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Sudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. So let's read that purport, 9th chapter, 32nd verse.
Purport. It is clearly declared here by the Supreme Lord that in devotional service there is no distinction between the lower and higher classes of people.
There it is.
In the material conception of life, there are such divisions, but for a person engaged in transcendental devotional service to the Lord, there are not. Everyone is eligible for the supreme destination. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18, it is stated that even the lowest, who are called chandalas, dog eaters, can be purified by association with a pure devotee. Therefore, devotional service and the guidance of a pure devotee are so strong that there is no discrimination between the lower and higher classes of men.
There it is again. Over and over he's repeating, there's no discrimination in Krishna consciousness. What could be more merciful than that? The Christians, they differentiate. They say, well, if you're a Muslim, you don't have much chance of going back to Jesus. You have to accept Jesus, otherwise there's no way. And they tell the Hindus that. They tell them, oh, you're going to hell because you don't accept Jesus. Have you ever heard that? Huh? What? Yeah, conversion is happening that way. Yeah. Oh, you're going to hell. They scare people. Mom, I'm going to hell. We better accept Jesus. That's mercy. No, it's not mercy. That's intimidation. Go ahead.
Anyone can take it. The most simple man taking shelter of a pure devotee can be purified by proper guidance. According to the different modes of material nature, men are classified in the mode of goodness, Brahmanas, the mode of passion, Kshatriyas, or administrators. The mixed modes of passion and ignorance,
So
Vaishya.
mixed, not mixed, mixed.
Mixed modes of passion and ignorance, Vaishyas or merchants, and the mode of ignorance, Shudras or workers. Those lower than them are called Chandalas, and they are born in sinful families. Generally, the association of those born in sinful families is not accepted by higher classes. But the process of devotional service is so strong that the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord can enable people of all other lower classes to attain the highest perfection of life. This is possible only when one takes shelter of Krishna, as indicated here by the word Vyapasritya. One has to take shelter completely of Krishna. Then one can become much greater than great jnanis and yogis.
See, this is mercy. This is real mercy. With no discrimination. Anyone can become a pure devotee if they accept to be instructed properly by bona fide gurus. So I explained to that lady, Krishna consciousness is merciful. Christianity is mean, right? And there's principles of mercy in Christianity, but if you look at the way they preach and what they preach and everything, it's all meanness. It's all intimidation. It's not full of love. And we see that in India. As soon as an Indian, a Hindu becomes a Christian, they hate Hinduism. They're taught to hate. So they're not Christians. They're haters. Okay. So we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Um, we talked about the progression of the soul, right?
The
So
what?
progression
Yeah.
of the soul in terms of different species. So Maharaj, other than human being, like other animals, they don't incur or accrue any karmas, or do they? If they
Who are you talking about?
any animals like cow
Animals.
or dog
Yeah.
or any animals, right?
Yeah.
So we say that they don't accrue any karmas. I mean, that's their, if tiger eats somebody, it's bad karma or something. So my question is, if they are not accruing karma, but they're still progressing from one, that's our understanding, that's from the lower species to the more conscious and higher species. So that something which I fail to understand, if they are not accruing karmas, but they are still getting promoted based on something.
Yeah, based on laws.
Yeah, but we say that, okay, if you do good thing as a human being, you will be elevated to this.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
human being, because human being has free will. Animals don't have free will.
Then how that soul is getting, like we say the cow, like Mataji is saying, that maybe cow is the
It's all
closest.
controlled by Krishna. Krishna's controlling the whole system through the demigods. Just like right now, who's controlling your stomach, your digestion?
Atma, yeah, soul,
No.
Paramatma.
Well, yeah. Or the devas. The devas are controlling.
Yeah.
it. So they're parts of your body you're not really controlling.
Yeah,
So those are laws of nature. And the same with the gradual progression from one species to another. It's controlled by the devatas.
based on what? They are controlling
Based on coming back to the human form of life. But it's a very slow process. It could take millions and millions of years. Because there's so many species. You have gone, I have gone through all those species. 8 million species to come to the human form of life. And then if we don't properly live in this lifetime, we can fall back into that process again. See, the animals don't have karma in the way we do because they don't have free will. They're being forced to do things according. It's called instinct, but that instinct is Paramatma. So they're not held like responsible for what they do because they're being forced to do it. But you and I are held responsible for what we do because we have limited free will. So these are based on laws of nature. Like, for example, we're subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. Those are laws of nature. You can't change them. But we have free will, so we can eat nonsense or we can eat prasadam. We can think nonsensical things or we can think about Krishna. So that's our limited free will. The animals don't have that. They're supposed to act like you come to the farm, you'll see the dogs all day long. They're playing with that red disc. You throw it, they'll chase it. You can do it all day long. They'll keep chasing it. They don't get tired. It's because they're dogs. We get tired of doing the same thing all day long, right? By the way, you shouldn't even do that because you're focusing on the dog. Yeah. But it gives you an idea. See, the dogs, every time you throw that thing, they'll grab it and then they'll bring it back so you can throw it again. And they'll do that all day long. If you play with them, they'll do it all day long. They don't get tired. That's because they're dogs. They're controlled by their body. But you can say, well, I'm sick and tired of the chasing that disc. I'm not going to do it now. Now, you can do that, but the dog can't do that. It's forced to do things. So everything depends. You are the Ishwara, not the supreme Ishwara like Krishna, but you are the Ishwara of your body. So you have to decide what you're going to do with this body. Either you're going to keep it in Krishna consciousness, or sometimes Krishna consciousness, sometimes nonsense, or all the time nonsense, no Krishna consciousness. So you're the controller. You can't control anybody else, but you can control your own body. So therefore you see the drug addicts, they're sleeping in the street. They don't take any baths. They're eating junk all the time. And then they overdose and die. That's their body. They're the Ishwara. And then somebody else is very meticulous. They're always clean. They're always regulated. But they're not Krishna conscious. But they have a nice house. They have a nice car. They have nice this, nice that. Right? But they're going to take birth again because they're attached to all those nice things. So that's why you're called the Ishwara of your body. Now it's up to you, it's up to me to make the right choices in life. The animals don't have those choices. They're forced to do things by the laws of nature. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol.
Just to clarify, so for an animal to obtain a human body, do they just go up the line of progression?
Yes.
So they just have to keep getting a new body until they reach the human status?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
There are some exceptions. Like, for example, if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, there was this one dog that went on parikram with a group of devotees. And when they reached Lord Chaitanya in Orissa, the Lord threw some banana peels, and the dog ate it. And then the dog went back to Godhead. So although it was a dog, it was liberated right away. And then also Lord Chaitanya, one time he hugged these trees. Each one of the trees went back to Godhead. So there are exceptions like that, but very rare.
Does King Bharata also falls into
What?
King Bharata?
Yeah.
From the deer form to human
He what? Oh, he had an animal form.
form. Maharaj, the question is in the 15.7, as we were reading, we talked about different planetary systems for Lord Rama, Narsimhadev, Vishnumurti. So does that mean each of them holds a different Vaikunta or a planetary system of their own?
There are many Vaikuntha planets, many, many billions of them in the spiritual world. So there are different, let's say, variations of Narayana, depending on how he holds the four different articles. So what is your question?
So is it a possibility that we end up in certain planetary systems? And if so,
In the spiritual world?
yeah.
Yes.
And what happens next? Like, do we see ourselves?
There can be progression in the spiritual world also.
Okay.
Yeah. If you read the book, it's in the library. The Bhagavad something. What? Yes. If you read that book, you'll see that it's possible to progress
In spiritual.
in the spiritual world.
Uh,
Everything is dynamic in the spiritual world. Nothing is static.
So when we go back to Goloka, yesterday you were mentioning that we will have the form as Krishna,
Similar.
similar form.
Not exactly, but very similar.
So I was wondering if it is similar, how do we identify Krishna?
How do we what? Identify Krishna? No, he'll always have something that we don't have. But it's very similar to him. Like in Vaikuntha, you'll have 4 arms like Narayana. In Goloka, you have 2 arms like Krishna. But the body itself will look very similar to Krishna.
Maharaj, in Brahma Samhita, as we are reading the purport, in the sixth one, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul. I understand the unalloyed devotion, but why does it says inaccessible to the Vedas?
Because the Vedas ultimately are made of mundane words. Right. So you understand the words, right? But when you engage in devotional service, it's completely spiritual. So it's only by devotional service, pure devotional service, that you'll understand Krishna. You just read the words, although the words help you, but I mean, we keep going over words here all the time. Why we keep going over it? Because we don't necessarily assimilate all this knowledge. But in the spiritual world, in the material world as well as the spiritual world, if you engage in devotional service, you become purified very quickly. Simply reading, you get some knowledge, but you don't necessarily get completely purified. You have to be engaged in practical devotional service, because that's spiritual, whether it's in the material world or the spiritual world. The words, they help, but they're not going to, let's say, completely convince us. It's only when you engage in devotional service and then you also read or hear, that's when it clicks and you become spiritually advanced.
Can we also consider the ritualistic things people do, mantras or chanting?
It helps a little bit, it helps, but it's not enough. Because there's always a material motive behind it, usually.
Right.
Yeah. Just like praying. Praying is not, give me something, God. Praying is glorifying God's transcendental qualities. So when you recite the Brahma Samhita, you're praying. That's what a prayer is, glorification of the Lord. It's not give me this and give me that. So when we learn that, then we don't say give me anymore. We just glorify the Lord's transcendental qualities. He knows what you need. He's in your heart. He knows better than you do or I do. But you don't have to ask for anything. You simply glorify the Lord. So most people, if you hear the Christians say this, okay, let's hold hands now we'll pray. And then the one person makes up a prayer, right? So that's not really praying. Praying is when you glorify God. That is misunderstood by almost everybody.
And just wanted to add, when you said the Christianity teaches hatred, so we had a couple of neighbors growing up and they turned into, they don't even take prashadam or any
Oh, no.
any item.
Prashadam is the devil's food.
And I used to wonder what kind of religion is that, where
It's a religion of hate. That's what it is.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Haribol. Okay, we'll stop right there. Haribol, glories to Prabhupada. Ki jai. The religion of hate. Well, it doesn't sound good, does it? So just chant Hare Krishna until he starts the Aarti. You can start now. You can start. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma.
Panamui Savadana Mate.
Panamui Savadana Mate.
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Baba Toriya Jai. Krishna Prapti Ho Jaya Hoite.
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite.
चिचते खोरिया क्या और ना करियो मने आशा श्री गुरु चरण ने रति ऐसे उत्तमा गति जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्वाशा चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्यगान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहाँ चरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनर बंधु लोकेनाथ लोकेर जीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहा मोरे पद छाया एबे गायस गोशक त्रिभुवाना श्रीला प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांता स्वामी नित्यानामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य विषधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवत्सरित गौर भक्त वृंदा Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Jai Gaura Premanandi ki jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramanta Parvajika Statara Satri Shri Shimad, His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava ki jai, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki jai, Ram Shri Prabhu Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Guru Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Samaveta Bhakti Devi ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanand. All glories to Samaveta. All glories to Samaveta. All glories to Samaveta. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Bhavani ki jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya ki jai. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service.
I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence. May his grace one cause from pure suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. In my conscious spirit purified by the words emanating from his lotus feet. Attachment for his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He helps me recognize and fills my heart with assurance and knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him extract prima emanates. My human ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual she defended the poor, Lord and Master of the devotees. O Master, breathe my soul unto us. Breathe your Lord's feet. In your frame and spread all of 3 worlds. We take his shield of his feet. Shiva Prabhupada.